like if there's one team out of the Sweet 16 that maybe has been underappreciated is Ole Miss.
Mm-hmm.
And that I was on them yesterday, was never a sweat against Iowa State. That was more of a fade, by the way, against Iowa State, coming in undermanned of the tournament.
Right.
So I did not see a long run coming for them. So it really was not a play on Ole Miss. Maybe it should have been. They're getting 2.5. That is respect in the marketplace against Sparty.
Mm-hmm.
Sparty somehow covers 7.5 against New Mexico. Don't get me started. Now they're going to lay 2.5 against Ole Miss. And I will say this, too. This is not like a conspiracy theory against the officials, but I saw some people on X. There were some bad calls that went against New Mexico. I get it. It's Sparty. We kind of want some of these programs. And by the way, Izzo's going to get some of those calls.
Yeah.
Right? And sometimes that's the advantage of having an Izzo or a Rick Pitino or a Calipari. You're going to get the benefit of some of that doubt. Does that factor in at all when you look at a game with a close, tight number like this at 2.5, total set at 143.5?
So the spread I want to eliminate immediately, just because we've seen that these spreads can be under just by a half point or a point the way it's gone. So if I was leaning the Michigan State side, which it looks like a bit of sharp money already in there on Sparty, even though the spread's still very tight, I would go money line. If you like the Sparty side. Full disclosure, I had said it to you, I had Ole Miss in my Elite Eight when we submitted our brackets, and here we are. I went away from it, but this was the road I thought that both teams could be on. I thought Ole Miss would take care of business, and an undermanned Iowa State team,
yep,
no question. What I wonder is, do you back Izzo just because now he's got the time? He's been here before. He knows how to prepare. You give him extra opportunities to be able to dial things up. The defense is what it is. On their worst days, who do you trust? I think you trust Sparty.
I tend to agree. And by the way, if the underbelly of the SEC is Ole Miss and Arkansas, that's a hell of an underbelly.
I tell you, they've done such a great job, and this is why conference play means a lot, is when you get through at the end of the gauntlet. I mean, you saw some of these SEC coaches like, we're tired. Man.
Oh, man.
This is a lot to expend to try and win night in and night out.
And I guess that was the conversation coming in. When you have 14 teams in from the conference, you get to the Sweet 16, now you have 7. How battle-tested are they really? We mentioned the Big East is already out. We did stock down last week, and my stock down was on the Big East. Yep. I like those teams. I like St. John's. I like Creighton. I thought Creighton, I thought they were actually better, more skilled than St. John's. St. John's had the will and the great coach. Got them as far as I thought they could get them. But when you look at the talent level of the SEC top to bottom, man, I can understand why it's a short number here in Sparty, but I love your handicap here because it's the SEC, because it's Ole Miss off a really good eye test against Iowa State. Maybe people forgetting that Iowa State was undermanned. This feels like a playable number for Sparty.
Yeah, and again, I know it's $1.60. But I'd rather lay the $1.60 and not get, one of those meaningless threes that we've seen have become so meaningful. By the way, State Farm Arena too. Also remember the venue as if you're looking at totals too, just for teams. And I know first half unders have been fun, but that's also when you get into football stadiums, it takes a minute.
Depth perception.
Even though they can do the practices and the workouts leading up to it, still takes a minute for those people to dial in.
Well, that was the curious part to me, that total sitting at 143.5, what style of game we're going to have and what style of game Ole Miss wants to play. Because Izzo, it's funny, we talked a little bit about Bill Self not liking his Kansas team, or maybe they didn't like each other, whatever that was. We talked about it with Mick Cronin and UCLA, and I'm not saying that led to, but those were still relatively early exits. I mean, between the two of them, they won one game. That was by UCLA, not by Kansas. Izzo loves this team. He loves this team. And he said yesterday in the postgame, after beating New Mexico, I thought we were a defensive team, and then we just decided to play offense. And he wasn't mad. It was like, this team, Izzo steps back, and he doesn't have to put the whip on them. He just lets them go, and they go, and he trusts them.
You think about where New Mexico had a great game plan early on. They executed well. Jace Richardson doesn't have a field goal until the final minute of the game, and it ends up being the biggest one. It just kind of gives you an idea that Sparty, and Duke is the same way, very unselfish. They don't care who gets the accolades, who gets the scoring. They're fine beating you in multiple ways. Florida was that way too and they still can be. But I think that's where you look at it with Sparty.
So very quickly, before we move on to Auburn and Michigan, what style of play, if you're Ole Miss, and you got a great coach on your sideline as well.
You got to track meet
we gotta
this.
Run them.
We got to run.
We got to run them.
You want to take Sparty out of the half court. Don't let them kind of bog it down for you. Get out, run, create with your athleticism. I think they could do that.
So again, in that total 143.5, it's going to be who wins that battle.
I think so.
Right? That's how you play it. If you think Sparty wins that battle of pace, you look to the under.
Yeah.
If you think that Ole Miss can get that tempo up, and Sparty can score too, that you would look to the over.
If this game's in the 60s, it's Sparty all the way. If you get upwards of the mid 70s, Ole Miss is loving life.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at zero cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.